Welcome back, everyone, to the Cyber Shift podcast. We've got something really important to dig into today, something a lot of businesses might not even realize is a big problem, and that is the true cost of free antivirus software. A lot of you out there are looking for ways to stay informed quickly and efficiently, so we're going to cut right to the chase and break it all down.
We see this all the time. Businesses just assuming that the free antivirus that came with their computers is actually giving them enough protection. We get it. Budgets are tight and free. It just sounds so good, right? But we really need to talk about why this can actually be a pretty risky move for your business. It might seem cost-effective up front, but there are some hidden costs and limitations that you need to be aware of.
It's funny, we'll talk to a business owner and they'll say, oh yeah, we've got antivirus, we're all good. But then when we actually start looking into it, it turns out they're using that same basic free antivirus that came pre-installed on their computers who knows how long ago. And look, I understand the appeal of free, especially when you're trying to keep costs down, but that sense of security it gives you can be really misleading.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head there that free antivirus is usually just offering the most basic level of defense, just enough to protect against those really old, well-known threats. It's kind of like having a really outdated security system that can only recognize a couple of old school ways of breaking in, but the world of cyber threats has changed a lot. The threats we're seeing now are way more sophisticated.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just some lone hacker in their basement anymore. We're talking about organized criminal groups with resources and automated attacks that are constantly probing for weaknesses,
That's a great point. It's like a whole different ballgame now.
Right. And here's where it gets even more interesting, because these advanced threats, things like ransomware that can totally lock you out of your system's credential harvesting, where they're after your login info supply chain attacks that can hit even your trusted vendors, and then you've got zero-day exploits. Those are brand new vulnerabilities that haven't even been patched yet. These are the kinds of things that free or basic antivirus often just completely misses. It's like you're waiting to get hit before you even put on any armor.
It's wild, isn't it? And the thing about free antivirus is that it's really limited in what it can do. It mostly just scans for known viruses, like a basic metal detector that's only looking for one specific type of metal. It doesn't have the capacity to do the deeper analysis that's needed to combat these modern threats. It's not looking at behavior for anything unusual or identifying suspicious patterns, and it can't respond in real time if a new threat pops up. It's a reactive approach in a world that demands a proactive one.
So let's break down some of those specific limitations of these free antivirus tools. One of the biggest ones we see all the time is the lack of centralized management. Can you imagine trying to manage the security software on every single computer in your business individually? It would be a nightmare, right?
Oh, absolutely. A complete logistical nightmare. And not just a nightmare, but a huge risk. If you can't manage your antivirus from one central location, how can you possibly make sure that every single computer is actually protected, that updates are being installed right away, and that your security policies are being applied consistently across the board? It's just not realistic. And on top of that, you usually don't get any real-time monitoring or alerts. So if something fishy is going on, you might not even know about it until it's too late. And when it comes to security, time is everything.
100%. And with so many people working remotely these days and businesses relying so heavily on cloud data-free antivirus, just creates these massive gaps in your security. It's usually designed for a single user on one device. It doesn't protect your employees when they're working from home on their personal laptops or tablets, and it doesn't extend to the data you're storing in the cloud.
And then there's the issue of support. If something goes wrong with free antivirus, you can't exactly call up your IT department or a managed service provider like us and expect them to swoop in and save the day. We just don't have the ability to manage or monitor a system that's running basic, unmanaged antivirus software.
It all comes back to that difference between being reactive and proactive, right? Free antivirus is sitting there waiting for a known threat to show up before it does anything. But today you need to be actively hunting down and stopping threats before they can even cause any damage. It's like waiting for a fire to break out before you call the fire department, instead of having smoke detectors and sprinkler systems in place.
Exactly. And to really drive this point home, let's talk about a real-life example, a situation we dealt with recently. We got a call from a mid-sized accounting firm. I think they had about 25 employees. They'd had a pretty serious security scare.
So what happened?
Well, one of their employees got what looked like a totally normal DocuSign request. Those are super common these days. Seemed completely legit. But it turned out to be a really cleverly disguised phishing email.
Oh, wow. This can be so tricky.
And here's the scary part. When the employee clicked the link, it silently installed a remote access tool on their computer, and guess what? Their free antivirus didn't even bat an eye. Completely missed it.
Are Are you serious?
Completely. And the attacker was playing the long game. They didn't do anything obvious right away. They just laid low in the system for a whole week, just lurking in the background.
A whole week? That's terrifying.
It is. And during that time, they were poking around the network, gaining access to all sorts of sensitive client data tax documents, bank records, the whole 9 yards. It was a disaster waiting to happen.
So how did they finally get caught?
It wasn't until a client called up and questioned a weird wire transfer request that anyone realized something was off. That's when they called us in. We did a full incident response, traced the intrusion back to its source, and got their system secured. But by then, the damage was done.
And that's the thing, right? It's not just about the immediate disruption and the cost of cleaning up the mess. There's the reputational damage, the loss of trust from clients. It can be a real blow.
Absolutely. And it just goes to show that even what seems like a small mistake, like clicking a bad link, can have huge consequences when your security isn't up to par.
So what's the alternative? What should businesses be doing instead of relying on free antivirus?
We're strong believers in a multi-layered security approach with endpoint security as a key component. It's not just about having any old antivirus. It's about having a robust system that's actively managed and can actually keep up with today's threats.
So moving beyond that basic free antivirus to more advanced solutions like EDR endpoint detection and response and MDR managed detection and response.
Yeah, those are game changers. Traditional antivirus is stuck in the past, just scanning for those known threats based on a database of signatures. EDR, on the other hand, is like super smart security system that's not just looking for specific bad guys, but is constantly watching for any suspicious behavior. It's monitoring activity on your endpoints and analyzing data in real time to spot anything unusual that could be a sign of a threat, even if it's something brand new that nobody's ever seen before.
So it's not just looking for a specific known bad file, it's looking for patterns of behavior that could indicate a problem that's amazing.
And that's where MDR comes in, because it's not just about having the tech, it's about having the human expertise to back it up.
Yeah.
MDR takes all that data that EDR is gathering and feeds it to a 247 team of security analysts who are trained to spot those subtle signs of an attack, so they can analyze those alerts, figure out if there's a real threat, and then take action immediately to shut it down, contain it, and protect your systems.
I remember you used a really good analogy to explain this before. Could you share that again?
Oh yeah. So think of it like this basic antivirus is like having a security camera. It can record what happens, but it's not necessarily going to tell you if there's a problem. EDR is like adding motion detection to that camera, so it can pick up on any unusual activity. And MDR is like having a live security team watching those cameras and motion alerts 24/7 ready to jump in and take care of any real threats.
That makes so much sense. And it's not just about setting it and forgetting it, right? Ongoing management and monitoring are critical.
Absolutely. Daily monitoring is essential. You can't just install these tools and assume everything's going to be fine. You need someone keeping an eye on things, making sure everything's running smoothly. Licenses are up to date. Any alerts are being investigated and dealt with right away. We see far too many cases where licenses expire or critical alerts get ignored, and that leaves the door wide open for attackers.
And it's more than just endpoint security too, right? A strong security posture needs multiple layers working together, kind of like a fortress with multiple walls and defenses.
Exactly. We always recommend a multi-layered approach that includes things like DNS filtering, which is like having a bouncer at the door of the internet, blocking access to any known bad websites before they can even load. And then there's email security, which is crucial for preventing those phishing and spoofed emails that are still one of the most common ways attackers try to trick people.
And of course, multi-factor authentication, MFA, that adds an extra layer of security to your user account. So even if someone does manage to steal a password, they still can't get in without that second factor.
And don't forget about employee training. Your employees are often the first line of defense. So educating them about the common threats and how to stay safe online is just as important as all the technical security measures you put in place.
And we can't forget about cloud security with so many businesses relying on platforms like Microsoft 365 and Google Workspace. It's easy to assume that everything's automatically protected in the cloud, but that's not always the case.
Right. Those platforms do have some built-in security, but they don't necessarily provide comprehensive backups or full protection against every type of threat, especially when it comes to internal threats or things like ransomware. We've seen cases where ransomware has encrypted data that was synced to the cloud, and the only thing that saved the business was having a separate independent backup solution that also covered their cloud data and user identities.
So let's talk about the bottom line, the true cost of free antivirus, because we've touched on this, but it's really important to emphasize that while it might seem free upfront, it can end up being incredibly costly in the long run.
No doubt about it. You might not be paying anything up front, but those indirect costs can really add up. Think about lost productivity, downtime if your systems go down, reputational damage if you have a data breach. And then there's the potential legal and regulatory headaches, especially if you're handling sensitive customer data. It could be a huge financial hit.
And when you weigh those potential costs against the investment in professional-grade security, it's clear that the value is there with a paid solution. You're getting real protection expert monitoring and peace of mind. You're investing in the long-term security and health of your business and potentially saving yourself a lot of trouble and expense down the line. It's not just about buying software, it's about investing in a level of protection and expertise that can safeguard your future.
We really hope this conversation has been eye-opening for you. It's so important to understand that in the world we live in today, basic free antivirus just doesn't cut it. You need a proactive, multi-layered strategy with robust tools and expert support if you want to stay ahead of the bad guys.
If you're having any doubts about your current endpoint security, or if you're still using free antivirus, we really encourage you to reach out to us. We can do a quick, no-pressure review of your systems and help you figure out exactly what you need to be safe and secure.
You can find us online at cybershift.com or shoot us an email at info@cybershift.com and let's chat. Cybersecurity doesn't have to be this big, scary thing. With the right partner and the right approach, you can relax and focus on what you do best, knowing that your business is protected.
Thanks for joining us for this important discussion on the CyberShift podcast. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into the world of cybersecurity.
See you then.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the CyberShift podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you'd like to stay up to date on all things CyberShift technologies, make sure to subscribe to our podcast and join the newsletter on cybershift.com. Have a great day.